What if the world around us was nothing more than an agreement between people, and someone had started rewriting it right now? The false consensus effect of reality. Evening on the University of Toronto campus was quieter than usual. Rain drummed steadily against the wide sociology department windows, as if reminding Natalie Bridges it was time to go home. Yet she remained at her desk, surrounded by folders, printed surveys, and monitors where graphs blinked lazily. Her project had been meant as a routine check of a textbook phenomenon, the false consensus effect. People tend to assume their own views are the norm and attribute them to the majority. This time, however, Natalie decided to combine standard surveys with an experimental module she had once stumbled upon in a forgotten 1970s study, officially labeled pseudoscience. The paper proposed an unusual technique: group discussion, synchronized breathing, and a shared visual focus on the same image. The authors called it cognitive resonance, suggesting it strengthened collective memory. Natalie was skeptical, but the method was simple and seemingly harmless. She hadn't even included it in the official study outline. She decided to test it privately. The first sessions passed uneventfully, save for small oddities. A couple of students complained of mild headaches. Someone mentioned a strange feeling of déjà vu. Natalie recorded it in her journal as unforeseen but likely coincidental side effects. Then came the cafeteria incident. The test group survey unanimously listed spicy chili with cornbread as the traditional Friday meal. Natalie knew such a thing had never been on the menu. Yet the next day, it appeared, with the same description as though it had always been part of campus dining. She checked the cafeteria archives for the past month, not a single mention of chili. The manager insisted, "We've always served it on Fridays. Students love it." A chill crept up her spine. Later that evening, while she was reviewing notes, a short email from Tom, a grad student from the office next door, popped up on her screen. "Did you really mean to start the group visualization phase?" The next day, Natalie decided the chili and green roof incident was just a string of coincidences. The brain always looks for patterns, even where none exist. That's what she'd been taught in her first year. But the more she analyzed, the clearer it became. The changes happened only after sessions where the group did synchronized breathing and focused on a single image. The sharper the visualization, the faster and more confidently the world shifted. In the sociology department hallway hung a bulletin board. That morning, it announced that Professor Kim's lecture was rescheduled for Tuesday. By midday, when Natalie passed again, it now read Wednesday. She opened her email to find yesterday's confirmation message, and in that too, it said Wednesday. "You noticed that?" came a quiet voice behind her. Tom, in a worn sweater, handed her a coffee mug. "It was Tuesday this morning. I've even got a photo." On his phone, the date clearly read Tuesday. "Consensus bubble," he said, as if it were obvious. When several people think the same way and align the picture, the rest disappears. Want to test it? They stepped outside. In front of the subway entrance stood a building whose color two passers-by described differently, blue or beige. Tom smirked. "On three, think of one color, and shake hands. It helps sync up." They did the consensus handshake and imagined the facade pale blue. Natalie felt a faint push in her temples, and the building became distinctly light blue. The two passers-by nodded without hesitation, as if they'd always seen it that way. Something twinged inside her. What if one day she lost something important the same way? That evening, she took out her phone and played a recording of her mother's voice. For a second, the timbre shifted, became unfamiliar, then returned to normal. In her notebook, she wrote, "Consensus handshake stabilizes the object, but may alter personal memories." Room 412 didn't exist in any university floor plan. Natalie checked 3 times. Yet that morning she opened the door and found the usual rows of desks, a chalkboard, and a group of students calmly waiting for a lecture. "It's always been 412, said Tom from the front row. "Maybe you've got old plans." After class, she returned and found a locked supply closet. That evening, they met in a small cafe near campus. Tom spread several printed maps and a notebook covered in scribbles across the table. "We don't have one shared reality anymore," he said. "We have pockets, small zones where the world adapts to the perception of an anchor." "Anchors?" Natalie asked. "People with high cognitive inertia. Their worldview is almost impossible to shift, and it sticks everything around it. But only where they are, doing what they normally do. The radius of stability is small but solid." He traced a finger on the map. On one street, certain buildings vanished if you looked at the map from a different angle. "This one's mine," he explained. "There's never been an alley here for me. In my version, it doesn't exist." Natalie noticed a photo in his phone's gallery. The same childhood birthday party, but in one version, there were 3 kids, and in another, just him and a girl. "I was in a group memory project," Tom said, avoiding her eyes. "Sometimes my life versions don't match." They ran an experiment. Tom described the weather as clear and warm, and raindrops on the cafe window began to evaporate. But his face tensed, his gaze drifted slightly. Natalie felt herself lose a few seconds, as if a fragment had been cut from her mind. When they returned to campus, Natalie found a note in the library return box. "Miss Bridges, please see me this evening. Emma, library." A week later, the world no longer pretended to be whole. That morning, Natalie walked a single block and saw 3 different versions of the weather. Wet snow falling at the intersection to her right, blazing sun to her left, and pouring rain straight ahead. People crossing from one zone to another changed instantly. Jackets turned to t-shirts, shopping bags to umbrellas. No one but her seemed to react. Gradually, residents began developing coexistence rules. Cafe doors bore stickers, "Today, left doors, spring," so customers knew what to expect inside. More and more, Natalie noticed fabric wristbands and pins with version codes. G roof, green roof, rain A, rain in the morning. One glance told you whether your worlds matched. But chaos was still dangerous. Once, Natalie reached an intersection where traffic lights showed different signals to different groups. Some stepped forward on green, others froze at red. Cars jerked forward, shouts rang out. A spontaneous consensus handshake saved them. Several people grabbed hands, shouted, "Red," and for a second, everyone saw the same light. By now, the internet was almost useless. Pages updated in real time, altering headlines and dates. News contradicted itself within minutes. At key junctions, consensus boards began appearing, large panels with that day's common layer map. Anyone could check the current fixation for that part of the city and mark their version. Natalie stood by such a board, watching school children draw a park symbol on a map, a park she couldn't see at all. In her notebook, she wrote, "Without rules, multiplicity is dangerous. Adaptation is inevitable." Natalie kept returning to the thought that the chaos could be stopped. Tom called it assembling the core of truth, fixing one version of the world for everything else to align around. For that, they needed anchors with strong cognitive inertia. The first was Emma. In the library where she worked, space always stayed whole. Shelves in place, windows opening onto the same street, books with covers matching the catalog. But one day, stepping outside with Natalie, Emma froze. Something sharp and pained flickered in her eyes. "He's not here," she whispered. "My husband. In the library, he's alive. We met there, and I hold on to that day. Here, he died 20 years ago." The second was a street musician under the bridge. He always played the same tune, soft, slightly husky, threaded with quiet joy. "It's the day I survived," he explained. "I was playing on the corner and missed the bus that crashed. The melody keeps the space together." The third was a tram conductor on an old line, missing from most maps. "This route took me to my daughter," he said, scanning the empty carriage. "She exists only in this line. If it disappears, so will she." Tom's plan was simple and frightening. Connect the anchors into a resonance grid, a network of mini cognitive resonance sessions to fix the common layer and erase the rest. If we do that, Natalie said, lines where someone's loved ones are alive will vanish. But the chaos will be gone, Tom replied. She looked at each anchor. Their stability had cost them everything, and now could take it back. In her notebook, she wrote, "Fixing the world equals death of versions. The price, others' lives and memories." The night was moonless and dark. In an abandoned hangar, among concrete walls and the smell of rust, stood Natalie, Tom, and the three anchors. Emma held an old book, the musician his worn saxophone, the conductor a metal ticket puncher, their keys to stability. "Focus," Tom said. "One city, one weather, one story." The resonance grid lit with a soft glow. Space around them sharpened. Split streets vanished, building lines aligned. But Natalie saw brief flashes, lives dissolving. Emma and her husband drinking tea by the library window. The conductor's daughter running along the platform. The musician on the street corner missing the bus that would never come again. Her chest tightened. She knew if they fixed the common layer now, these versions would be gone forever. "We're almost there," Tom shouted over the rising hum. "No," she said, "there's another way." She stepped to the console and, without shutting down the system, began speaking. Coexistence protocol, daily consensus boards, and a common layer only for transport, medicine, and emergency services. Consensus handshake, standard in schools and workplaces. Neutral zones, hospitals, stations, no anchoring, no rituals. Rotation of anchors so no version dominates. Tom frowned. "You want to leave the chaos. I want everyone to have the right to their reality. Instead of one world, we built infrastructure for many." He was silent, then slowly nodded. "That is doable." Natalie shut down the fixation grid. Instead, she activated the city's cross-check channel. Radios, electronic displays, notifications synced to every consensus board. In her notebook, she wrote, "Not to order is to let everything survive." The city moved to a new rhythm. In the mornings, the conductor ran his tram route, the one in the transport common layer. Passengers knew everything here was synchronized: stops, schedules, routes. But in the evening, he boarded an empty car and rode his personal loop, the line where his daughter waited at the last stop. In the park, a sign read, "Today, this is a park," in the common layer. For some passers-by beyond the sign was a green lawn with swings. For others, a construction site. No one argued anymore. They simply chose where to go. At school, the morning began with a quick version roll call. "Rain for me today." "Snow." "Sunny." Teachers marked their logs to adjust lessons and recess. Natalie now worked at the Center for Plural Reality. Reports from consensus boards, city services, and public cross-check channels came to her desk. She compiled the common layers for the next 24 hours for ambulances, firefighters, transit. Storefront reflections still wavered, but next to each was a QR tag, layer fixed until 6 p.m. It had become as ordinary as the weather forecast. That evening, Natalie played her mother's voice recording. The sound was steady, without the distortions and skips that had once frightened her. Now she knew, even if she someday heard a different timbre, that too would be part of the truth. Memory could have several truths, and that was no threat. She stepped out of the center and paused at a consensus board. On the city map, beside today's date, someone had written in marker, "We equal all layers." Natalie smiled. We had learned to say "we" with one small clarification first. Which layer today?